right, welcome today. I've got Sarah Krebs here with Hearth. I'm super excited to just have you on, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we're going to talk about financing and how to pre-qualify, using financing to pre-qualify your leads, and just how to do that. So we'll kind of unpack that in a second. Again, the goal of this video series and all of our videos and interviews that we do with every partner is that you walk away with just one nugget to help your business get to the next level. So super excited for that. Sarah, without further ado, will you mind introducing yourself? Tell us a little about of you, your background, and just a little bit about Hearth.
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thank you guys so much for having me. So excited to be on. Totally enjoyed, the last time I spoke with you. Love talking to pretty much any partners, especially those in the lead gen kind of space, because as you know, it's very close to my heart here with contractors and understanding that's kind of the lifeblood of this industry. And a little bit about myself. I've been working with contractors for just under a decade, always in the residential home improvement space. Have always worked on the marketing side of the business. I came to Hearth almost about a year ago now. And really what we're doing here at Hearth is trying to empower businesses of all sizes to start offering financing options to their customers. Basically, we have a super easy to use tool, dashboard, mobile app, where we allow contractors when they're meeting with homeowners to give them payment options. And I think something that's been super interesting to me coming into the financing world is, really there's financing options for pretty much any single item that you purchase nowadays. I don't know if anyone's gone on and filled up their cart at, like, let's say a Macy's or even on Amazon. You can break things into monthly payments. So as we see that happening pretty much in every purchase, now it's only become more important for home improvement contractors to be offering the same service. Excited to kind of dive a little bit more into financing and how contractors can really be utilizing financing and pre-qualification with financing to really build their funnel and actually make it more efficient as they're working leads.
Absolutely. Well, and I think there's some of you guys on here today maybe have already have financing tools that you use and will pull out at some points in your sales process, or you get in the home and then you're going to provide them it's going to be $12,000 to replace the roof here, or it's going to be a payment of $169 a month. What do you want to do? And kind of give some people some options that you do have financing or even offering it. So today, what we want to talk about is how do we use financing as, in the front end of the customer process and the communication. Obviously, Sarah, you've got experience in the lead generation business within home improvements here specifically. And so not every lead, so not every customer who even calls you, we find out can't even afford to pay for a new roof. The biggest question we get across the board when a new homeowner inquires about a roofing project or windows or bath is, how much does it cost? Right? That's that's the number one thing. And we go, well, let's have somebody out to your home and all of that. But there's this unique spot where if you spend all your time and attention and send your sales rep out to that home and find out that they didn't have the money to pay for it to begin with, or they can't be approved for financing, so you're wasting your time in that whole process and that homeowner's time through that. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute. So how can we present really a financing offer to a homeowner saying, I can offer financing to you, and then get people to fill out, your form on your website, or even reach out to you, or even let people know about financing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think to start with that, really the best thing is just telling people that you offer it. And I think historically with traditional financing, which some of you on the call might offer, maybe really any financing that's been available in the industry previous to Hearth was always kind of a last option resort. It was never something you wanted to provide upfront as a contractor, because a lot of the times you have to pay dealer fees on it. A lot of the contractors that we're working with, those dealer fees can be upwards of 15% of the job. So whether it's your techs, whether it's the owner, they were really holding financing in the back pocket as the absolute last resort to offer to a homeowner. So where Hearth has come in and kind of flipped the dynamic to putting it early on in your process is because we have a pre-qualification form that you can be sending out to homeowners that has no impact on their credit. It takes them 2 minutes, and you won't have to pay dealer fees on the back end. So what we're seeing contractors do who are successfully offering financing and putting it in that front messaging is kind of two main tactics that you as contractors can utilize. The first is having financing banners and language on your website, having financing language and banners on your Yelp page, on your Facebook page, and making sure that people on the front end are engaging with your, any type of presence online, know that you have financing. And then the second piece of it is when you're doing any scheduling, whether that's through your call center or, through your office, talking about financing on the phone call. So I think a really important thing that, when I meet with contractors who are really successful with financing is when they have someone call into their office to schedule an appointment. Of course, they're scheduling the appointment as they normally would. And as you mentioned, 9 times out of 10, the homeowner is annoyed. Let's say it's an HVAC company. The homeowner's heat, has gone off. They're in the Northeast in the middle of the winter. They're immediately asking that appointment setter how much it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. And I think a really helpful thing that if you're utilizing Hearth, you can do is be like, you know what? It's totally going to be dependent on your system. Are you interested in financing? Because what I can go ahead and do, I can send you over a pre-qualification form, takes 2 minutes, has no impact on your credit, and I'll give you a good idea of, what your budget could be for this type of project so that when the tech comes out, they can actually be informed with what you're looking at from a budget perspective. And being able to offer the homeowner, sure, you can't offer them the exact price over the phone just then, but being able to offer them a pre-qualification and financing, homeowners want options. And it will make you able to convert leads, especially at the top of the funnel, into that demo set and demo run a little bit easier during that process. So that's kind of the two tactics that I see being effective.
Yeah, well, it takes, I think anytime you can help homeowners, because just like you said, the traditional model has been, let's talk about financing after we've talked about price. And I think we can reverse that and go, well, if we already know that most homeowners above, it's the statistics, these are old statistics by now, is that, any project over $5,000 in price half of those are financed. Anything over 5,000 in home improvements. That's like interbank study from like years ago.
And now it's moved up. I think it's 67% now is what the typical statistic is of people who want to finance at least a portion of those larger projects.
Well, and if you can bring that up initially in the initial phone call and the initial conversation that you have with that customer and say, most of our customers finance their project. Are you the same way? Yes. Well, let me send you over a pre-qualification form and it obviously is no obligation. You can set all the parameters there, which we'll get to in a second of how to do that. It takes that off the table. It doesn't require them and set anything up. But in a lot of this, you'll know with that homeowner of what they're even pre-qualified for. So when the sales rep comes down and says the price is going to be $15,000, well, if your sales rep already knows that they already approved for $25,000, that's great. If they already know they're only approved for $10,000, there's a gap there that you need to be able to solve, and your sales rep can even help them solve that problem.
Absolutely. And imagine they fill it out and they actually don't pre-qualify for anything. They're really going through some financial hardship. We work down to a 550 FICO. We have 17 lenders on the platform. If not able to offer them something in terms of a loan, it's probably going to be very difficult for them to afford it in any other capacity. So then you can actually not totally deprioritize that lead, but as a business, maybe you don't send your best sales guy out there to drive 45 minutes out of his way to go take a look at the job. Maybe if you see that you have another pre-qualification form come in the same day and someone's pre-qualified up to $25,000 and they're only 15 minutes away, maybe when you're prioritizing your leads, you're taking a look and you're sending your best sales guy over there, knowing that homeowner really has the best bang for your buck, the best budget. And typically that's going to be a much higher profit job, which ultimately will enable you to have better cash flow. So making those decisions, utilizing information that comes from that pre-qualification can be really, really helpful for the business.
Absolutely. Well, the other piece of it is that if you find out that they're not pre-qualified for anything, and if it's HVAC or roofing and it just needs to get done, that's leaking and needs to get done, well, you're not talking about a replacement of a roof, or you're not talking about a replacement of an HVAC system, but then your internal team can call that person back and say, it doesn't look like you're approved for financing for this project. Do you have alternative means to pay for this? Before I send a sales rep out there and give you a quote, likely it's going to be, out of your budget. So
Totally.
you
Let's
save
just send a
time, you
technician.
save,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's send a tech out there and get it,
yep,
fixed, put a bandage on it for $300, save everyone time, get the sales rep, not wasting an appointment. And then God, goodness knows, maybe they'll go to Dairy Queen after. You got 3 hours, you lose a sales rep. So making it as efficient as possible for your team can help just inform a lot of those decisions.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we all know, especially in the home improvement space, that these sales reps, the I'd say the tonality and the morality of these sales reps as you're sending them out to these homes. I was just talking to a company that was, they were getting such high credit decline rates, and you typically get higher and higher credit decline rates as you go further from a city center. So if you're sending sales reps out 2, hours or an hour away from your office, only to find out the person needs a roof, wants a roof, or needs your windows, wants your windows, signs your paperwork, only to find out that their credit declined, that's a demoralizing experience for a commission-only sales rep who just spent all their time and energy. So why not ask them the qualification questions? Are you looking at financing this option program? Let me get you approved for financing here. You don't have to even go with that financing through us. You'll just know that you're pre-approved. It doesn't cost you anything. And then you know what you're looking for. Can you afford windows? Can you not afford windows? Is this a better time to look in the future? So you can really have that conversation. And that's customer service. I think customer centric experience today is what homeowners want. They want their questions answered and go, well, I can't give you a final price, but I can, windows could be anywhere from this price to this price, and I can give you that range, but most people finance. Are you in the same boat? And then, take them down that route. So let's talk about that here a little bit. So we talked about like saving time, but I think one of the things about kind of scripting that conversation in bringing up financing for a homeowner, I think one of the fears that most companies have about introducing financing too early in that process, it's one thing to say, here's your price, Mr. Homeowner. It's going to be $20,000 to replace your roof. Or we have financing options that could be as low as $200 a month. It's giving this either or. I've already sold them on the value of my company and price and product, and now I'm producing a price that's, is justifying that. Now I'm introducing financing. So it's a way of them, saying, yes, they've already said, yes, I'm going to purchase from you. And then they're, it's like, well, yeah, of course I'd apply for financing from you. I think there's this scary, if you're introducing financing earlier in the process and saying, hey, let's see if you're pre-approved. They're going, well, I don't know what I'm pre-approved for. I don't know how much it's going to cost. Like, I want to know how much it's going to cost, and then I'll see if I can get it pre-approved. So you are changing the order of it. So how would you script that conversation? How would you bring that up, as you kind of mentioned on the phone? If someone's on the phone and says, hey, are you interested in financing? Let me send you this link. How would you recommend kind of scripting that and putting that in practice?
No, that's a very real concern. And I think something that contractors do need to think about when they're having these conversations. And I think the way that we always recommend approaching it is not making anything seem set in stone, right? And I think when you're talking with homeowners about the financing options, it's like, yes, this is the range that we think that the project could possibly be. The good news with Hearth is that you can put in any amount because it's a pre-qualification. We can always adjust the amount that you're looking for after we give the estimate. But if you go ahead and fill out the pre-qualification, it'll just give you a good idea what you can fund up to. And then from there, we can work backwards. And I think just telling homeowners that with the pre-qual, and this is something that is different than the traditional financing, there's nothing set in stone. Because it's a soft pull, because it takes 2 minutes to fill out, we can always adjust this. This is just to give us an indicator of what you could be possibly offered. This is no way saying that this is the amount that you need to take out or don't need to take out. It just gives you some insight into what you're even available to offer as you're starting to think about the project you want to envision on your home.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the other aspect of it is portion of homeowners will fill out that pre-qualification form and a portion wouldn't. And I think part of it is that most of those pre-qualification forms are a literal form they have to fill, that homeowner has to fill out. So a traditional way of filling that out is the sales reps and has the credit app while they're sitting in the home, whether they have an iPad or a computer, they turn over to the homeowner and, and close their eyes while they put, enter their internal personal information into
Of
that
course.
pre-qualification form. So, but I've kind of got some emphasis into that of, they're going to fill it out if they're interested. But how do you do that when I'm not in person with that person? So I think one of the things is like, I don't want my call center, like taking down personal information
Oh my
and,
God. They should
pre-qualifying
never.
these things. There's like, they should
Yeah,
never
no,
do that.
they
That's,
should never do
you
that.
know, so
No,
so how does Hearth kind of get over that, and talk about kind of how your text messaging and communication with the homeowner it doesn't have to be in person.
absolutely. And to be clear, it can be in person. We have a lot of contractors who will still present it in person, still, turn over their tablet and have the homeowner fill it out. But there's also other ways where you're meeting the homeowner where they are so they can fill it out on their own time. And the way that Hearth has really utilized this piece of the market is by having this pre-qualification link that's co-branded to every single business that they can send out to the homeowner via text, email, however they communicate with the homeowner. So a good example of this would be, let's say you have a homeowner call into your office. You have Mary who works at the office setting appointments. She sets the appointment. Fantastic. They're going to be out Thursday at 10. When she's, asking homeowners different questions, she can say, hey, are you possibly interested in monthly payments for the job? Because if so, we'll send you the pre-qualification, 2 minutes to fill out, no impact on your credit. And I'll give you a good idea of, your possible budget for this type of job if you choose to use monthly payments. If the homeowner's like, yeah, definitely send that over, Mary's probably going to send a correspondence out to the homeowner confirming the appointment. Most contractors are utilizing like text message, email. Maybe they'll actually call to confirm before the tech comes out. And really in these correspondence, all that a contractor has to do is copy and paste that pre-qualification link and send it to the homeowner. And then a lot of the times homeowners want to fill in their personal information on their own devices. I know I personally would feel much more comfortable inputting my information in my cell phone than I would in, a technician who I met 10 minutes ago's tablet. So what the homeowner can do then is actually input their information. And whether this is pre-appointment, on appointment, post-appointment, the homeowner can do it at a time that makes sense for them and makes them feel more comfortable, especially because it is personal information, right? Like this is how much they're making annually. And it's a very quick form and there's no obligation for them to borrow when they fill this out. So reiterating those 3 points, I think is probably the most valuable thing you can do, whether that's via text, email, or phone call, is that this is a pre-qualification form that has no impact on your credit, takes 2 minutes, and you have no obligation to borrow. It's helping you understand what your options are.
Yeah.
So that's would be how I would present it if I'm thinking about, obviously there's still a ton of contractors who present it in the home. And I think that's a very, very valuable piece. But if you're going to present it outside of the home, either pre-appointment or post-appointment, those are some ways that I would approach it.
Yeah. And I know with your integration with Hatch, they can get a little link that links to that co-branded page that says, that they're filling out that credit application. And then you get as a contractor, you get the status of that, as well. So you're kind of getting the understanding of whether that person's approved, or they filled it out or didn't fill it out there too. So, and the pre-qualification side of things and the text messaging, I'm curious for like, how many homeowners who are sent those text messages and sent those pre-qualification forms actually fill them out, because that's also a drop off there too, is that not everyone is going to fill that information out. What should be kind of the expected return of people kind of, filling that form out?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's hard to answer because I think every contractor is so different, and the way that they actually send the pre-qualification form out really impacts how many homeowners fill it out. But I would say on average, if you're sending it out, let's say to like 9 homeowners, if you're a roofing company that is pretty on your game when it comes to text message, you have automated follow-up, you have someone in the office confirming, those homeowners are fairly engaged. So I would say you could probably expect maybe 2 of them out of 9 to fill it out pre-appointment. Because that's generally speaking what we see maybe with roofing. But then like, for instance, we'll see with like like walk-in tubs, that's a much higher percentage because those are typically very highly financed projects. So it really just depends on the industry, to be honest, on what those percentages are. But I would say as the contractor, I would never expect that every single homeowner is going to fill out this pre-qualification page. I wouldn't expect that every single homeowner that I send the pre-qual for or ask about financing would even fund. I think ultimately what contractors, and we teach us a lot, is that you might not fund the first 3 or 4 projects that you send our pre-qualification link out to. It's very similar, I would say, to sales, right? You have a group of leads, and out of, maybe 10 leads, you're able to convert 2. That's awesome. And it's the same piece with financing, but knowing that it's not about looking at the number homeowner to homeowner, but month over month, if you're looking at, let's say 10 homeowners that I sent the pre-qual link to, and I was able to close 2 additional jobs that I would have totally missed out on if I didn't offer monthly payments, that's where contractors see the immense value in offering financing, because it can just increase their close rate at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I think the point to be made is that if at the end of the day, the homeowner has to come up with the money somehow.
100%.
Right? So, if you're not offering financing right now, they're either having to, come up with it out of savings. Those people already aren't going to be looking at financing anyway. But the people who were traditionally going to look at financing and use you to finance it, they would just go look for financing other places. And if you can try to keep that customer and offer as many additional services to them and say, hey, we can offer financing for you, it kind of keeps them closer to you and closer, to doing business with you, because you're giving them an approval. And the financing was offered through you, versus if they go and reach out to their bank, and then does their banker ever call them back? Then they forget about that project and move that, project.
Or if they put it on a credit card that they're paying interest on, that's financing.
Yep.
So I think contractors forget that homeowners are seeking out financing for these jobs. Maybe if they're not seeking it out through you, but they might be seeking it out through their credit card. They might have actually taken out like a personal loan outside of Hearth through the bank. Like there's so many different ways homeowners are capturing this money. And I think when we're thinking about, the amount of homeowners who actually fill out the form, the most important piece that we really talk about at Hearth is sending that form out to everyone, because there's no harm.
Yep.
You're not going to offend anyone. You're not going to bother anyone with it. It's an easy way to just capture low-hanging fruit. And I think because kind of going back to the initial point, because financing was always this last resort, because contractors had to pay such high dealer fees, contractors are nervous at times to present it in the forefront because they don't want to offend people. And I think that's something that I've kind of thought through too, maybe earlier on, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I think it could almost look taboo, like, oh, you don't have the money, so you want to finance it. But I think what's been an interesting learning, especially over the past couple of years, is that really the group that is financing the most from a home improvement project standpoint is going to be your middle to upper class, because these are people who have fantastic credit. They have very low debt to income. So chances are they're getting 0% interest options that Hearth offers, or they're getting very low interest rates. So it actually makes sense for them to take out financing on the project than to go in and, maybe go into, let's say, a money market account, a Schwab account that they have in their investments and in the market, and take cash out to pay for a $13,000 project. So I think changing that mindset for contractors too of, if I send this pre-qualification link out to everyone, it won't hurt me and can actually only help the business, because I'll capture people who want financing options but didn't even know I offered them to ask.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it just, it doesn't hurt to send it out, and it is in the presentation and how you deliver financing options, and how you you do have to kind of sell that, try to get them to fill that form out. And it's it is asking some personal information of you, and just
totally,
putting some caveats on that. So I'm curious, just kind of scripting on that, how to script and handing over that link. Is there a way to kind of script it it's going to ask you personal information, but it won't affect your credit on that side of things, that could help with getting more of those qualifications filled out as well? So
absolutely. No, that's a great question. I think reiterating to the homeowner that this form is encrypted and secure. We're not storing, as the contractor, we're not storing any of your personal data. That goes to the banks. It doesn't come to us. this form is essentially just looking at the information that you give it. We're not pulling credit from any of, the big credit bureaus to look at it. Really, we're pre-qualifying based on the information that you give us and your financial profile. And really, I think the biggest piece too is telling homeowners, feel free to give Hearth a call.
Yeah.
Talk to them. We're real people. Customer success will pick up. We're not a fly-by-night company. At this point, I think we're working with around 13,000 contractors across the US. And we've been in business for, just over 5 years. So I think just reiterating to the homeowner, I didn't just build this page to capture your personal information. This is a company that's established doing it. And they're, insured, encrypted, security is incredibly important. And that's something that we really value with our homeowner data. But I think as a contractor, just reiterating that this is a secure process and these are 17 lenders that trust us to offer monthly payments for you is really the best thing that you can do. But if they're still weary, having them reach out to us is also totally an option, because that's something that we really want to do for contractors, is not make this a headache for them. We want to handle the financing part and let them focus on doing the roof, doing the HVAC unit, et cetera.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's really good. I think that's kind of, obviously you can use financing in the beginning, qualification. I think that's a huge benefit. We've talked about that in a couple different webinars here so far, is talking about how you can expand your geographic coverage area. Biggest thing we find with most companies is that you limit your marketing and you limit your sales ability to a pretty small geographic area around a metro area. With a lot of that fear being, as soon as you go out into those outskirts, you're taking sales bandwidth. You're taking your sales reps and driving them 2 hours in a different direction. Although there's less competition out in that direction, it also it does take your sales reps time and energy and bandwidth. So we've had other companies on the webinars here and interviews of how to be able to really maximize that by having better inside sales, having conversations with homeowners. If you can offer them financing, see if they're approved, and then send a sales rep out there, sending different ways to be able to kind of capture that larger market without having to extend your sales team and kind of run them ragged simultaneously. So you can capture that demand, capture those homeowners that are, 2 hours away from you, in major markets that you can find an install crew in, that you can get the leads, and you're just going to have a different process for handling that customer and that lead. So I think,
and if a homeowner takes the time to, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the homeowner takes the time to actually fill out this pre-qualification from like an intent signals perspective. If I'm a contractor, I'm pumped. I'm like, they're thinking about budget. They're not just like, oh, like this is, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. They're motivated enough to fill out a pre-qualification. They're thinking about budget. They're investing the time. So for me as a lead, I'm pumped. I'm sending my best sales guy out there, and he knows that it's going to be worth the ride, because the homeowner isn't just someone who confirmed the appointment and then maybe no shows. This is someone who has taken the time to actually invest a little bit more into the thought of budget, which is the most important part of the conversation. No, but it's so true about geographic. I never thought about that. It's like such a easy way to grow the business. That's such a no-brainer, but it does take additional resources. So it's like, how can we make sure that with the same amount of people, we're being as efficient as possible in exploring those new areas?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing with adding additional geographic areas, that it does require a little bit different training for your call center in those other areas there. But and I think the fear has been, how do you train your call center reps to gather personal data information, which you never want them to do anyway, or anyone in your company. But if you can say, hey, I'll send you a text message with this link, and then that's the first step. And then my next step is I'll call you and follow up, and we'll see, where that stands. And then we'll send somebody out there or not. It's a slightly different tweak in your sales, your setting process, and, and issuing that appointment. But it can make a world of difference in being able to.
And it gives you credibility as a contractor. Like, financing is something that really, for a very long time, because of all the underwriting criteria of traditional financing, only the upper echelon of contractors really even offered for a very, very long time pre-Hearth. And it was, the big players in the world were the ones who really were able to offer financing, because they were doing so much volume that the dealer fees didn't matter, because they were just doing an insane amount of financing volume. And I think like even when I watch TV for 15 minutes in Austin, I'm watching a local station. This happened to me 2 days ago, and I'm obviously very attuned to it because I work in financing and I'm very biased. But I saw Radiant, which is a company here in Austin, pretty much 50% of their ad was about their financing options.
Yeah.
I saw a roofing company in Austin that talked about financing options at the front part of their ad, which is very rare. I typically don't see that. And so like knowing that these companies are really building value with homeowners on TV spots at night around financing, to me only increases you as a contractor and your call center seeming legitimate and increasing your customer experience by offering those links pre-appointment.
Yeah, and I think that's a way to differentiate yourself as well within the marketplace, is that most companies are not offering, the pre-qualification on the front end. Because again, when we did our study this last fall and interviewing a bunch of homeowners, and it was 1,500 homeowners, the number one thing they wanted to know is what it costs. Even before what materials options there were to replace my roof or to do windows, all that kind of stuff, they want to know how much it costs and that side of things. So if you can, I think financing obviously is part of the answer to that question. Well, yeah, we would love to give you how much it costs, but I'm curious, first off step, how do you plan on paying for the project? If the project
What's your budget?
What's your budget?
How can I possibly tell you what it's going to cost if I have no concept of what you are even looking for? It's interesting to me because I think contractors get really upset when homeowners do ask what it costs. And I sympathize because I totally understand they don't want to give a price over the phone. I would never want to give a price over the phone because then you lose the entire salesmanship of being a home improvement contractor and presenting your incredible craftsmanship. Yeah. But I think giving homeowners the ability to say, really what it costs is on you to some extent, right? Yeah. It's on what you can afford. And then coming out and really educating homeowners on, based on their budget, these are options A, B, C, and D. You turn in their minds from this sales rep who's trying to push them onto the highest quality shingle to a sales rep who understood what their budget was, looked for an option within their budget, and then presented it to them. And I think like that dynamic switch versus the, oh, what's the price, can be super, super helpful. Yeah. And for contractors, it's so important.
Yeah. And I see the industry really trending towards this. I mean, I think sharing away from the, I'm not going to give you any price information until my sales rep get there. I'm seeing more and more companies starting to move the direction of going, how much do windows cost? And they go, well, it's a range. There's a cheap window that's really inexpensive all the way to a really expensive window. And they can range from $400 all the way up to $1,500, $2,000 a window, depending on how big the window is and all the types of features and benefits. That's a large, gigantic range. And just curious, how many windows are you looking at replacing? And then go, well, perfect. How do you plan on paying for the project? How soon are you wanting to do it? We have financing options. Would you like to, even see if you can get pre-qualified for how many windows you could get replaced? And you can know your budget for the project if the financing was the option there. So if you can have more of that conversation front loaded in your communication with a homeowner, it does require more call center training and bandwidth. But I truly believe that that's the direction that companies need to go, is on a customer service side of things. Don't put as much on the sales rep. And normally it's been sell the appointment. If you can handle more of it on the initial phone call, you'll save your sales reps time and bandwidth on the outside of things. And they'll be running more quality leads and appointments that they're going to demo at a higher rate and close at a higher rate that you've actually.
And then you'll be able to retain them.
Yes.
You'll retain them better because you're not going to be the number one thing I hear from sales reps at, whether it's roofing, heating and cooling, so literally any industry, is like getting bad leads from their call center, getting bad leads from their call center who are already pre-appointment. And I think when we're thinking about really how can we be maximizing the business, keeping employees, everyone in the industry knows that it's so hard to find high quality employees. So the more that we can keep them on board with just giving them more information when they're running these, the better off we'll be. But I also think it comes from this mentality that, we always held on to price, because before the internet, before, all of this information became available to homeowners online, we were the keepers of the price as home improvement contractors. We were the only one who knew how much, a brand new HVAC system is, but it's very easy to be a homeowner right now and Google what an HVAC install is. So homeowners 9 times out of 10, when they're asking you what the price is, they have like a, price calculator up on their computer when they're calling you. So I think us guarding price only really turns homeowners away, because they're like, well, I can get this information online. Why can't you give me at least some price range? And so the more that we can be informing them, it's helpful.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think we're all educated consumers now, that we can go on Amazon and know that if I'm going to type in there, I'm looking for any product, there's going to be a range of prices, and I'm going to be looking at the cheaper end, and maybe it's got 2 stars and 1 review, and this other one's in the mid price and it's got 1 million reviews and the high price, and I'm going to look through reviews and prices and quality, and I'm going to make an educated decision. So I think, just like you said, most buyers are fairly educated. And when you actually remove and don't share any pricing or any even ranges whatsoever, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because that information, they're just going to go get it from somewhere else. And that's also going to increase your cancellations, because at the end of the day, though, if someone else is being more honest on the front end with them, well, there's immediate trust being built that your sales rep might be the one that best shares the price on that side of things. But if you're not sharing even a general range, I think you're missing out on that.
Absolutely. So, I couldn't agree more.
No, we can go on that for a while here, but Sarah, I appreciate your time here today. That how can people reach you? How can people reach you if they have questions or Hearth?
Absolutely. So to reach out to me, or really anyone at Hearth, to answer any of your questions about how to offer financing, best practices, scripting, we can really help with any questions you have on financing. You can go to gethearth.com. Input your information, and it would be myself. We have a sales team here that I work super closely with, and they can reach out to you, understand like where financing would fit in with your business, and how best practices to utilize it. And then if you want to reach out to me personally, best thing to do would be shoot me an email. Best email address for me will be Sarah with an H, Kreps, Kreps, at gethearth.com. And I'm happy to talk to anyone more about financing. Obviously, it's something I'm super passionate about, and I think something that I just see being such an easy win for contractors with such a low cost and barrier to entry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
but thank you so much for having me on. This was such a great conversation.
It's
I
fun.
Totally enjoyed it.
Keep going and going here. So thank you, Sarah, so much for your time. And like I said, you'll get the webinar recording after the email here. Thank you, Sarah. Well, have a great day, and have a great day, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for hopping on. I'll speak with you later.